بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So in the last lesson, I know it was quite some time ago, but we were talking about sorcery, one of the greater sins in Islam, from Ayatollah Dastagir Shirazi's book in volume 2. So we'll continue where we left off. The title of this section, he says, ignorance about the future is better for the people. We'll explain. He says, we must understand that prohibition of soothsaying is beneficial to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want people to know the knowledge of the future. It's possible that someone might know the outcome of something, something important that will happen, and it will take place according to his desire, the way that he wants it to. But also, this happening will be dependent on something else, like dua or giving sadaqah. And having this knowledge beforehand, it will prevent the person from giving sadaqah or making dua. For example, he sees in the future that he will marry the person that he wants to marry, for example, or he will get the house that he wants to get, or whatever it is that he wants in his future. He sees it written for him. But this result is dependent on some causes, which he will get what he wants, but he should have made dua for this, or he needed to give sadaqah for this thing to happen. But he already sees it from the fortune teller. He says, okay, it's for me, so why do I need to give from my money and give sadaqah? Or why do I need to spend the night in making dua in Laylatul Qadr, for example, or Laylatul Juma, doing dua kamel? Why should I do that? It's already going to come to me anyway. So it's Allah wants us to make dua. Allah wants us to give sadaqah. Allah wants us to do good things, and He rewards us for those things. If we know the knowledge of the future, maybe that we won't do those things. We'll just say, okay, it's for us. So similarly, he says, similarly, he may come to know of a certain calamity that might come to him, and this will cause him to get a lot of anxiety, when in reality, the thing might not happen at all, because it might have bada. Something may seem one way, and then it changes to something else. Uh, we know a lot of examples from calamities being changed for people by making dua or giving sadaqah or doing some good actions towards people or making tawbah, istighfar. For example, the people of Nabi Yunus alayhi salam, they saw the great calamity coming towards them, the punishment of Allah, but they did tawbah, istighfar. They asked Allah for forgiveness, and they made dua, and they promised to follow the one Allah sent to them, and then Allah changed this in the last moment for them and removed that punishment because of this. Also, we see that Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam was commanded to slaughter Ismail alayhi salam, but it was changed in the last moment. So maybe someone knowing the future events that may happen to them, they say, okay, this calamity is written for me. On the Thursday, I will die, for example, and they get very nervous about it, very anxious, or they get in an accident or something on this Thursday, for example. But this thing may have been written for them, but they give sadaqah or they do salatul raham with their parents or relatives, some good action for their relatives, then Allah prevents that thing and lengthens their life. So it may not come to happen. Why have all that anxiety about something that may not happen anyway, because there's bada in these things. So ignorance about the future event is better for people because they're going to do good actions and things like this. There's a story about Nabi Dawood alayhi salam regarding this unseen knowledge of the hidden knowledge of things. Um, it says when Dawood became a Nabi, a prophet, he started judging different cases, but then he realized his limitation in the court. So every once in a while, it happened that he was sure of a person's guilt, but he couldn't do anything to that person because he didn't have the evidence. But he was sure that they were guilty. So he asked Allah to allow him to judge based on not on the evidence of the testimony of the witnesses, but based on the divine knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah told him, "You have asked me for information that I haven't given to anyone, and upon which it is not fitting for anyone to judge the people except myself." Dawood kept insisting. So Allah sent Jibreel to warn him again. But when Dawood kept insisting and asking for this, Allah told him that he answered his request. So the first case that will be presented tomorrow, Jibreel told him, will be such a case. So the next morning, two people came, and one old and the other one young. The young man had a bunch of grapes in his hand, and the old man said, "Ya Nabi Allah, this young man came into my garden. He destroyed my grapevines. He ate from my grapes without my permission." So Dawood asked the young man, "What's your side of the story?" So he admitted that he had done whatever he was accused of, and Allah warned Dawood once again, "If I reveal the true verdict in this case and you pass judgment accordingly between these two people, you won't like it. And your people, they won't accept it." Dawood, he said it said Dawood, the old man broke into the young man's house, into his father's garden, and he killed him. So he stole his garden, and he stole 40,000 silver pieces from him and buried them in a corner of the garden. Give the young man a sword and order him to execute the old man. Then turn the garden back over to him and tell him to dig in such and such a place to recover his father's money. So Dawood passed judgment as Allah instructed him to do, and there was an uproar among Bani Israel. They didn't like it. They exclaimed, "He has ordered the thief to execute the victim." Dawood asked Allah to save him from, the backlash of his people. And so Allah informed him where the young man's father was buried. He told him to go there with the Bani Israel and, bring this man out from the grave and ask him that he could himself describe the circumstances of his death. So he wanted Dawood to bring him back to life. He did this, and the Bani Israel were satisfied. Allah told Nabi Dawood, "In the future, judge based on evidence and on the testimony of the witnesses, and don't ask to pass judgment based on my knowledge until the day of judgment." So we see that even though the circumstance with Allah's knowledge is the true knowledge, it's difficult for some people to, it's better for them to just judge off of the witnesses. The hidden knowledge for them would be, too difficult for them. So sometimes we see the ignorance about the future is better for the people, and we should judge based on witnesses and testimony and our own way instead of asking Allah for the hidden knowledge of the things, because it's a difficult pill for people to swallow, as they say. We have narration in Ihtijaj from Kitab al-Ihtijaj from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He says, after the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the shayateen and the jinns were denied access to the heavens. Hence, they were unable to give information about the things that were going on, the divine elements of life. So now they could only inform about the evil magical matters. This information is unreliable because the jinns, they have good jinns and they have bad jinns, and they have lying jinns and truthful jinns. So resulting, the result of the fortune teller or the one who claims knowledge of the unseen is unreliable to go to these people, because maybe it is a lie, maybe it is true, but it's not something that gives certainty. It's just a possibility that they would give. And it's not true knowledge, because true knowledge is based on certainty, and their knowledge is not based on certainty. It's based on things that could change, based on unreliable things. Maybe they told lies. Maybe they told the truth. Who knows? We don't know. So we cannot rely on something that we don't know, that we're not certain about. So this is one of the reasons why we cannot rely on soothsayers or psychics, or whatever term we want to call them. So to understand, he says, to understand the evil of magic and soothsaying, it is enough to know that numerous types of frauds, crimes, thefts, cheating are all committed through this act. The sorcerer, he continues to do, bad actions. He leaves all the good actions, and he only concentrates on doing things that will bring him closer to Shaitan. He commits adultery, for example, with a married woman. Sometimes he kills someone unlawfully. Sometimes he drink najasat, for example, blood or urine or other things. He shows disrespect to the things that Allah commanded us to respect. For example, he disrespects the Holy Quran. Na'udhu billah. He performs these actions and they bring him closer to the shayateen, and eventually he becomes in their company or becomes friends with them. And he debases himself lower than the shayateen so that they can help him in this type of dark magic. The author says, it's certainly a great pity or shame that a human being who's capable of doing the best of actions and worthy to even reach the level higher than the angels would lower himself by evil deeds, that his position is degraded below the shaitan, below shayateen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. Indeed, we created the human beings in the best of forms. Then we reduced them to the lowest of low, except those who believe and do good deeds. So we see that the way not to be in the lowest of the low, we need to have two criteria. We need to believe, and we also need to do good deeds. And when you look at sorcery and magic, it is the opposite. It is disbelieving, and it is doing evil deeds. Another type of magic that he mentions is or magic, sorcery, these type of things is illusions. It says fast movements of an object can create an optical illusion for the person who's looking at it. He says, for example, a ball of fire is moved around in circles. It can be seen to be a circle of fire. In the same way, a person who's traveling in a car or a train, he feels that he is sitting still and his surroundings are moving in the opposite direction. And some people are adept at creating illusions, and they think that these things are real. And he says to all the fuqaha are unanimous that this type of illusion is haram and as a type of magic. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam in Kitabu Ihtijaj, he mentions that creating illusions is a type of sorcery. Another form of this magic is seen that it is a reality and it's not an illusion. They do the illusion, but the onlooker thinks that it's a reality. So they are fooling them and doing a trick on their eyes. The magicians of Fir'aun, they use this with Nabi Musa alayhi salam. First, they created an illusion, then they switched over to actual sorcery. And there are also a lot of type of magic and tricks involved with this. And he says not necessary to go into all of the details. He gives a story, and it shows about this magic and sorcery and how people come closer to Shaitan through these type of acts. It's a very nice story. He says it's been narrated about Abu Hafs Haddad that when he was a young man, he had fallen in love with this lady, and he was, captivated by this lady, and he would do anything to be with her. So someone told her that there was a Jewish magician in Nishapur, and he could, facilitate this. So he went to the Jew and he asked him about, what he wanted to do. And the magician told him to leave the prayers back from there, and he followed the instructions of the sorcerer. So he left salat, he left all the good deeds, and he was waiting for this 40 days of not doing any good thing. This is one of the ways that the magic can work. So after 40 days, Abu Hafs went back to the Jew again, and he told him, the magic hasn't worked. It has been 40 days. So the magician was also surprised. So he asked Abu Hafs, and Abu Hafs told him, you must have at least done one good thing, in these 40 days that nullified the magic. So we see here that doing good actions nullifies magic. So magic has effect on those who, the opposite can be understood from this, that the one who does not do any good things, they don't pray, they don't fast, they don't do sadaqah, they don't do any good action for anyone else, magic can be effective on them. So Abu Hafs thought, and he said, what kind of good thing? I haven't done anything in 40 days that he remembered, except this one thing. He said in the pathway, we could say like in the road, there was a rock and it was in the way for people, was causing problem for people. So I picked up that rock and I moved it so it wouldn't hurt the traveler. For example, there's a pothole in the road and you know that maybe someone's going to hit this pothole and blow their tire. So you take some rocks and some dirt and you fill the hole so it doesn't bother anyone. And, he did this thing. So the Jew said, that was it. That's what the magician said. That was it. That's what you did. Even though you disobeyed Allah for 40 days, you didn't fulfill any of your wajibat, none of your obligations. Yet Allah is such a merciful God that He even accepted such a small deed from you and prevented the magic to work on you. So it's not appropriate for you to disobey such a generous God. So the words of the magician had a very strong effect on Abu Hafs, that he did tawbah and he asked Allah to forgive him for all of the wrong deeds, that he went to that magician, that he left his obligations for 40 days, and he started absorbing himself in ibadah and worship, and he sought forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he became so pious after that that eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enabled him to do miraculous things. He became like one of the awliya Allah, because of his tawbah and istighfar and commitment to do good things for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we see here that one of the ways that the magicians want the spells to work is to leave the good deeds. It's always dealing with something that's haram. Whether it's killing a person unlawfully, whether it's drinking najasa, whether it is disrespecting the Quran, whether it is leaving the wajibat, all of these things, this is what the magicians do. In order to affect their spells on others. I've heard that one of the ways that some of the people would do this to tell the future events and to get close to the jinn, they would sit on the Holy Quran, na'udhu billah, to put it under their backside in order to disrespect the Quran. So we see that all of these things are surrounded with haramat, the forbidden things. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam described the different varieties of magic to the one who had posed a question to him. The person asked the Imam, if it was possible for a magician to transform a human being into a dog or a pig, for example, like we see in the Disney stories, the prince was transformed into a frog or something like, like this. If it's possible for this to happen. Imam said, the magician cannot do this, because if he can transform the creations of Allah, he will become a partner of Allah in his creation, whereas no one can be a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if the magician had these type of powers, he would use them on himself. He would get rid of his forgetfulness, his difficulties that come in life, his illnesses, and he wouldn't even allow to have one gray hair on his head. He would have taken away all his poverty. He would have had all of the riches and all of these type of things. The most dangerous type of magic that the author mentions is that causes differences between two friends, also between spouses and family members and these type of things. The ones that cause disagreements. It creates hatred and malice between those people who love each other. And this can be caused by instigating one against the other. So this is also, there's a type of magic for this. And for example, some people get jealous of the other person and they see that they are married and I cannot get married. They have kids and I cannot have kids, and they get jealous and they want them to lose their spouse. They want them to lose their children in order that they are in the same position as them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Karim. He is generous. Just because someone else has something we shouldn't wish for the downfall of the other one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you as well. He can give all the people. Just be happy for others and pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bestow you with the same as someone else, and be patient and wait. We shouldn't want, dimming someone else's light doesn't make yours shine brighter, as they say. We shouldn't wish for the downfall of others. We should be happy when we see someone else, rise above and do good. Another type of magic is called taskhirat, which is controlling jinns. So it's a type of method they use that they can control jinns, souls, and different types of wild animals. This is also haram, type of sorcery. The Sheikh has also mentioned in Al-Maqasid that the characteristics of magic and sorcery are present in this type of magic. Although we see that Shahid al-Awwal, Shahid al-Thani, they consider magic haram because it does harm to others. So they might have considered, that this thing is haram, controlling the jinns, because maybe it causes them suffering in this method. So in any case, it is all haram. The next type of sorcery is called qayafa. It's the art of determining the lineage of an individual based on guessing, not on other, scientific methods that we have, but guessing about their lineage and making it as a fact. So a person practicing this can decide whether a particular individual is the son or the brother of another person, but it's against the doctrine of Islam for establishing the lineage of a person, and it's a type of magic. So it's haram according to all the fuqaha. On the other hand, he says it's possible for a knowledgeable and wise person to ascertain certain facts regarding an individual on the basis of his physical characteristics. This practice is not haram. He says many unusual episodes have been narrated about this type of knowledge. He says there's an interesting incident in Al-Kafi, as well as the 11th volume of Bahar al-Anwar by Alama Majlisi, that during the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Ali ibn Hurayra was a governor of one of the Abbasi caliphs. He had a slave named Rafid. One day, he was so angry with Rafid that he wanted to kill his slave. So the slave ran away and went to Imam Sadiq and took refuge with him. The Imam told him, don't worry, go back to your master and say that Imam Sadiq has ordered you to spare his life. And he took refuge with me. Basically, tell him that you took refuge with the Imam. So Rafid was terrified. He says, this guy's going to kill me, when I go back. But the Imam insisted, don't worry, go back to him. So when the slave was on his way back, he met an Arab man who said, where are you going? Your face is like the face of a dead man. Then he told Rafid to show him his hand. And again, he remarked, these are the hands of a person who has been killed. So he's telling his future. He looked at the legs and passed the same judgment. He said that his complete body was that of a person who was to be murdered. So imagine this guy is, panicking probably at this. And then he asked him, show me your tongue. Upon seeing his tongue, the person who was telling the future, he said, no type of harm will come to you, because your tongue is ambassador, or one who's carrying a message that if you would go to the huge mountains, they would become soft and they would become obedient to you, because he is carrying the words of Imam. The words of Imam are heavy. So the slave went to his master, Ali ibn Hurayra. He gave the orders to execute him. He said, we're going to kill you. So his hands were tied, and the executioner moved forward with his sword drawn. Then he told his master that it wasn't he who got him arrested. You didn't arrest me. I came back on my own will. Just let me tell you something in private, and give me a few moments. So he agreed. And then he told his master, Ja'far ibn Muhammad, the master of both of us, has sent you his salam and requested you to spare my life. When the master heard this, he couldn't believe it. So the slave repeated it to him again under oath. He at once freed him and sought forgiveness for him, and he insisted that his hands be tied in the same way that his slave's hands were tied. Rafid, he couldn't make himself to do this, but on insistence of of Ali ibn Huraira, he had his hands tied. So the slave tied the hands of the master and then untied them quickly. He felt, ashamed to tie someone else's hands. And then Ali ibn Huraira gave his seal ring to his slave Rafid, and then he set him free. Subhanallah. So it's a beautiful story that tells about this type of, knowledge. When someone sees something, it may look one way to them, and he makes a judgment and based on that. But in reality, he sees that, something else changed it. He may appear one way, but in the end, he was carrying the message of Imam Sadiq, and Imam told him that he wasn't going to die. So he had knowledge from the Imam. So it's not a knowledge from the Imam is certainty, but knowledge from someone making predictions is uncertain, and we cannot rely on that. So I think we have run out of time, and inshallah we'll take a short break and come back with the next class. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Ajil farajahum. So inshallah, I'll come back after 5 minutes.